Hi everyone, Marisa Stone here with Simon Says Social and the Systems Lounge, and I want to welcome you today to the 2018 Premier International Women's Business Systems Virtual Summit, where you get to learn all about the systems that our speakers are using to get things done. And today I am stoked to have Becky Mollenkamp here today. She is going to be talking with us all about the power of engaged Facebook groups. So if you're trying to get your Facebook group up and running and it's just not working, stick around because we're going to dive deep into that conversation in just a moment. But let me tell you a little bit about Becky. So Becky began her career as a journalist. She actually worked as a staff reporter for a daily newspaper and edited for one of the country's largest magazines. She left that 9-to-5 in 2005, where she began to focus on, as a freelance writer and really focus on shifting from news writing to corporate writing. And today she actually takes those skills and helps other freelance writers to deal with their mindset and to really figure out what their strategy is so that they can own their authority and crush those goals that they have. She has a very large Facebook community called Own It, Crush It, which is where I met her. And she recently launched a membership community inside that Facebook group that's an exclusive community for those who want to take it up a notch. Becky, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the summit.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Awesome. So let's begin at the beginning. What in the world is a Facebook group?
It's interesting. So I first got exposed to Facebook groups probably, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, which really isn't that long ago when you think about it. And it was Being Boss. If you've listened to the Being Boss podcast, which I was doing a lot of at the time, they mentioned their Facebook group. And I was like, what is this Facebook group thing?
Yeah.
So I headed over to Facebook and joined and was like, oh, this is really great. Why didn't I know about these? Up until then, my social media, like I used a lot of Twitter. I was a huge Twitter user for a long time and it was really great for me. But around that same time, I felt like Twitter was starting to lose some of its engagement. People, it seemed like everyone was using Hootsuite or something to program out their tweets and there was no live interaction anymore. So I was really craving something else. And for me, Facebook really just meant interacting with my friends and family. I didn't realize there was like a way to really start to reach out to other people who do what I do. And so when I found out about this group, I was like, oh, this is really great. So what a Facebook group is it's just a place on Facebook. It's a separate space that you can go into where you can interact with people who do what you do or who have something similar in their life. There's mommy groups. Basically, anything you can think of, there's a Facebook group for. There are probably millions. I don't know the stats, but I would imagine there's at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions of groups. And there are groups of like 5 people up to groups of hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people. And some of them are exclusive, private, where you can't even find them unless you're invited. Others are really open where you can join and anyone can just join. And then there are groups like mine, which is a closed group. It's available to find out about, but you can't join unless I approve you.
Right. So isn't opening your own Facebook group though just another one of these marketing trends that we see come and go?
Could be. Time will tell, right? With anything, whether it's sticky or not. The one thing I will say in Facebook's favor is Facebook does not seem to be going anywhere. It's been around a while. It is ubiquitous. They're like, honestly, at this point, even when I meet a 90-year-old who doesn't have a Facebook profile, I'm shocked. Everyone is on Facebook. Not everyone's using it to the extent that maybe I am, but everyone's there. And I just don't see it going anywhere. It's sort of like Amazon. Like I think Amazon's here to stay. I think Facebook's here to stay. Some things come and go. There was Anchor, Periscope, some of these things about, but Facebook has proven itself. So I don't think Facebook's going anywhere. And I know Facebook is very dedicated to making sure that its groups continue to grow and that people are using them. So it's going to keep putting its power behind it, and they keep changing because Facebook keeps responding to what people want. So, I'm not here to tell you that it's definitely the marketing trend or the marketing tactic that you need to use and that will always be there. But right now they can be really powerful. And I have a feeling they're going to be around in some iteration for quite a while.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So let's apply that to entrepreneurs. And you've alluded to some of this, right? Facebook has figured this out and they've got a formula and they're sticking around. But why should entrepreneurs be concerned with this idea of perhaps having their own Facebook group?
It can be, a really powerful tool for increasing your visibility, for people finding you and learning about what you do, liking you, getting to know who you are and really enjoying you as a person and wanting to work with you, and then eventually buying from you.
Yeah.
And you may be ready to ask me this, so I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but not everyone should have a Facebook group. And I feel like that's really important to say, because just like anything else, it requires a lot of work and it's not right for everyone. But if you're somebody who thinks it's if you love community, if it feels like something that might be right for you, there is a lot of potential there for it to really help your business.
Yeah. And I love that you say that, right? It's not necessarily for everybody. I get that question all the time from clients. Should I be on every platform, right? And the answer to that is you should be where your audience is. So if your audience wants that more, like a lot of people will open a Facebook group that's a temporary Facebook group for a challenge or a project that they're working on. Other people do these more long-term projects like what you've got going on inside Own It, Crush It. So it really depends on what you're looking for and what your audience is looking for.
And I'll take it a step further in saying that, yes, you should be where your audience is and what your audience wants. But ultimately, particularly if you are a solopreneur, if you are your brand, you need to be doing things that you want to do and that you enjoy doing. Because if you can't stand it, that's gonna show, and you won't have the staying power, and you may end up resenting it, which is the last thing you want. Right. So if it's something that you don't enjoy, don't do it. I don't care if it's the ideal thing for your client. If it doesn't work for you, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's totally true, 100%. So let's say you've kind of piqued my interest and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I need a Facebook group. How in the world do I figure out what to call it? And what should my banner image even look like?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think probably it should be something that's around your brand. Although that's interesting that I say that, because at the time I started my group, I did not have any kind of branding around Own It, Crush It. I was going through, I do business mentoring, as you mentioned, and I was mentoring someone else and going through this whole exercise with them about what is your mission, and boiling that down to its most fundamental. And I was doing the exercise myself, and I realized that for me, when I really looked at it fundamentally, the thing that I most care about is helping people own their authority and crush their goals. And this kept coming up for me. And I finally was like, so if I'm boiling that down to the bare minimums, it is owning it and crushing it. I can't get any pithier than that statement. So it happened to be, I was going through that exercise at the time that I was thinking about starting a Facebook group. And I was like, well, I'll just call it that. Because I didn't really want to just call it my name, because I think that's confusing. First of all, I have a business page that is my name, because my business is my name. And I was like, who's going to want to join something that's about me specifically? That seemed a little too self-centered for me. And so I was like, I'll just use this Own It, Crush It, without honestly at the time having any idea what that would become or what that meant or anything. I can be somebody who's a bit impulsive and fly by the seat of my pants. It's funny because I would never preach that to anyone else. I would tell you to have a plan and a strategy. I don't always practice what I preach, and it's worked out pretty well for me. But I think if you actually have a plan, it might be better. So I would say your groups probably have something to do with your brand, what it is you do. Obviously, the goal is to get people to know you and what you do. So you want whatever the group is to have something to do with what it is you offer. So while Own It, Crush It wasn't something I necessarily had branded at the time or that was part of me, I was mentoring people to do those two things, to really own their authority and crush their goals. So it really made sense. And the goal then is to get people who are interested in those topics. You want to get people into a group that relates to what you do, that are interested in what you do, who want to learn more about that, because then eventually you hope that they will want to learn it specifically from you. So, and then as far as your cover image, I wish I had a better answer for you. My first one was just like a computer, because I didn't know what to do. Actually, I don't even think I've changed it. So if you go, you'll probably be woefully unimpressed with what my cover image is. It's just like a computer that tells people what the group is. It's a space for women entrepreneurs who want to own their authority and crush their goals.
Yep. And I think that's a big piece of it, right? When you're talking about what the group's purpose is, perhaps that's where you should start with your cover image. I know some people will put their image on there, and then they'll put all the ways in which they engage all week long with you. So different days will have different topic areas that they're going to talk about. Other people might use computers or some sort of business. Right now I've got the summit image as my banner image, because it's all about the summit. So it really depends. What I would suggest that you do is change that image periodically to show that you're a very active group, that you guys are doing really cool things. You are moving through this process of learning about for instance, in Becky's group, owning it and crushing it, right? So, because that is a prime piece of real estate there that you got going on, so you want to utilize it. So can I ask you a question? One of the things that you tell your clients is how powerful an engaged Facebook community can truly be. What do you mean by that? So can you explain to us kind of how that's worked for you?
Yes. So as I said, there are probably millions, if not hundreds of thousands, but I bet millions of Facebook groups out there. And there are endless numbers of them that are around business topics.
Right.
So there's no shortage of groups for people to join.
Right.
If you want them to stick around, you have to give them a reason.
Yeah.
And so the mistake I see a lot of people making, and I understand it, is that they spend a lot of time talking about themselves and promoting their business and asking people to buy things from them.
Right.
Why do I want to stay in that group? I'm not learning. And also it's crickets. The only person that's talking is the moderator of the group. Well, that's great if I'm interested in a sales pitch or a glorified webinar or whatever that is, but you're going to lose people because eventually they don't care about you and your stuff until they care about you and your stuff. But you have to get them to care first. And and that means that they need to want to be in that group. And guess what? Humans are selfish, and that's okay. But they care about themselves first. So they need to learn something. They need to feel a sense of community. They need to have fun. Whatever it is, they have to be getting something from it. You talking about you is not them getting anything from it. So you need to have a group that is not just you talking. And that is a lot of groups, unfortunately, because it's very hard to do the work to get a group that is engaged, where you have people participating actively all the time, helping each other, answering questions, asking questions, being involved. That takes a lot of time and effort. And so when I say not everyone should have a group, not everyone should have a group, because if you're using the group only to talk about yourself and do nothing else, if you have no time or interest in starting conversations, listening to people, answering questions, asking questions, showing up, then you are going to create a group that will be you talking to the wind, and nothing will come of it. So you might as well not do it because it serves no purpose. So if you, though, are somebody who's truly interested in community and wants to create that and knows that if you invest in that, eventually it starts to pay off for you, then a Facebook group can be great. And that's how you get in that engagement. It all starts with your own personal commitment.
So you talked a little bit about some of the ways in which you engage with your people, right? You ask questions and other such. What sort of things should I be posting to create this more engaged type of group? Certainly questions and polls and things such as that are going to work great, but you do all kinds of really cool stuff inside your group. Can you kind of share some of that with us?
Well, so when I first started, I was like, okay, I'm in a lot of, first of all, I was in a lot of groups first. And I think that that's something that if you're new to groups, you probably want to do before you rush out to start a group.
Right.
Although I guess I can see both sides of this. Maybe if you've never been in one, you come in with fresh eyes completely. But I think spending some time in groups is useful because you can see what works and doesn't work for yourself. What do you like and not like about groups? What gets you to show up and answer questions or get you to show up and participate? And what makes you say, And I will say the thing that made me say, was these groups where it was just nothing. It was part of a sales funnel, right? The group was nothing more than that. It was just, I'm here to tell you about the new thing I'm selling. And I mean, I've been in groups where I have tried to participate and I've been told by the moderators, no one's allowed to do anything but me. Well, that doesn't feel like a group, my friend. That just feels like an advertisement. Group to me means community, right? Facebook group is about community. So you need to create that. That's incumbent upon you as a moderator to do. So what should you do? Spend some time and learn what you like and then use some of that. And I also tried to think, okay, what's a little different that I could do? So I have daily prompts. Some of them were things that I liked from other groups, like similar topics that worked. Some of them were things that I thought, I like this idea. Nobody else is doing it. So why don't I? Also, I tried to think around what is my core offering? And if I'm all about owning your authority and crushing your goals, what are things that are relevant to that? So I have some things that are a little more touchy-feely. Like I ask people to say something nice about themselves, which I wasn't seeing in other groups, but it felt like it was aligned with this idea of owning your authority. Like I want people to start to get where they're doing a little more introspection and feeling good about themselves. And by the way, also people love to talk about themselves. So that's a good way to start to elicit responses. And so when you're thinking about things to include, think about what it is you do. And what are the kinds of questions people are always asking you about what you do? Those are things that you can start to turn into prompts or questions or whatever it is to get people engaged.
Yeah.
Also, remember, people like to talk about themselves. So don't make it you just spouting off forever about all your vast knowledge. Ask questions.
Yeah.
People like to do that. They like to share their own knowledge. They like to talk about themselves.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting that you say that, because, I always talk with my clients about, let's think about this as if, I were taking you to lunch, right? We would not go to lunch and I'm blabbing the entire time and you're going, oh my gosh, I wish you would shut up. We would be having a two-way conversation and figuring out ways in which we can collaborate or share resources or whatever it is. And so doing that inside your group is super important. I agree with that.
And you wouldn't go to that lunch meeting and have the first thing out of your mouth be, buy my stuff.
Right.
Here's my stuff, buy it.
Yeah. Come on.
It's funny how we all know in real life, or at least most of us, I think at this point, know how to behave in real life. Like we understand some social graces, but for some reason we get online and we think that the rules should change.
Right.
And now everyone should suddenly just want to buy from us immediately. Like that's, and I see it all the time, and you're only turning people off.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep. So I've seen something inside Facebook groups called a pinned post. What is that, and why is that useful inside a Facebook group?
Well, it's interesting because I'm still debating whether it's useful, and I'll tell you why. But I'll tell you what a pin post is. So a pin post means you can take any post that you as the moderator have shared and move it to the top, and it will start permanently stay there until you unpin it. So even if it was something you posted 4 months ago, if you've pinned it, it becomes the top post and other things will fall below it. Unfortunately, if you've ever looked at mobile, a pinned post doesn't show up as the first thing. There's a little place where it says pinned post. You have to click on it to go look at the pinned post. Right. So that kind of defeats the purpose of a pinned post, because now that post actually gets lost. It's not showing up. And most people these days are looking at Facebook on their phones. So that's something Facebook needs to address. And I actually just saw a conference where they're talking about groups and changes that are coming. And it is something that will be changing. And it, honestly, who knows? They act so quickly that it could change by the time we've talked. Right. The time it's airs. I don't know. Because Facebook just announced a whole bunch of new admin tools that are very exciting. And this is part of that. They're going to be changing that. So watch for what's coming and see in the admin tools, pinned posts. I think they're actually going to create something now where you can sort of prioritize some posts in a different way. And I think it will work better with mobile. So I think it will become something more important. Up until now, honestly, though, pinned posts usually don't work well for me because people don't see them on mobile.
Yeah. Well, I did like the way one of your people who has done a Facebook Live inside your group, and I did like the way you pinned that, especially for people who were looking for that particular event and maybe they couldn't be there during the live session, but they could watch it later. I thought that was a fabulous idea when you did that.
Yeah, and I do like to do it. And I still do pin posts sometimes, just hoping that at least the people who are on their laptops or their computers are going to see it. Right. But just know, I just think it's a thing that we don't always think about. Like, for whatever reason, Facebook didn't think that through with mobile. And people are more and more, we're doing everything on our phones.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably two different teams. One team is working on the desktop version of the software, and the other team is working on mobile, and they didn't really have a conversation.
Right.
And that's probably how that got lost in the mix, So unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this interview, and I can't believe it because I don't feel like we've been talking anywhere near long enough. But is there anything else that we need to know about the power of engaged Facebook groups?
Truly, nothing has been bigger for my business than having this group. And all I can say is I wish I had done it sooner. Yeah. So if you're thinking about it, and again, only if you're really ready to commit to time, it is not something that takes no time. It takes a lot of time.
Right.
If you want to do it well and have it really work. But if it's something that you think can be something you want to do and you're ready to invest the time, don't wait. I waited for a long time because I had all these thoughts of like, well, what do I have to say? And who would I invite? And who would come? That stuff will work itself out. Just get started, because all of your lost time is people who could have joined your group. And a group starts to snowball. It reaches a point where like it starts to just get really big. And the beginning part's the hardest part. So get the beginning part going and get it under your belt.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. So this has been absolutely fantastic. Before we let you go, how can people reach out to you if they want to pick your brain some more about this idea of engaged Facebook groups, access some of your resources, or perhaps work with you or join your membership site? How can they reach out to you?
Oh, I think the links will all be below, so you can certainly do that. Also, my group is called Own It, Crush It on Facebook, and I'd love to have you join. We are a group for women or people who identify as women, so that's only those folks. But if you qualify in that realm, then if you're a business owner or aspiring business owner, I'd love to have you. It is a really active, engaged group, and my whole thing is about it being very supportive and positive, and so it's a really great space.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Becky. Guys, if you are struggling with your Facebook group or trying to figure out if this is something even really for you, you definitely want to stick around for this much deeper dive that I'm going to be taking with Becky in just a few moments. But in order to do so, you're going to have to grab your all access pass. To do that, click on the link below. It's going to take you to a page so that you can snag that right now. And not only are you going to get all of these live sessions that you're watching right now, but you're going to get every single one of these much deeper dives that I'm taking with every single one of our speakers, and you do not want to miss that. Becky, thank you so much for being here, and guys, we will see you inside the All Access Pass. Bye, everyone.